people start their company with love, slowly it becomes greed, or chahiye, or करते हैं. Then one day there is a fear. Oh my God, what if everything I lose? And then there is duty. I must do it, otherwise I can't close it. But if we have lost the love of doing it at the first place, so the most important aspect is love. It's not fear, it's not duty, it is not greed, it is love. Do you do something only and only because you love it? And if you love it, it stands out.
Hi Pavan, I am Anupam and Rinku welcomes you on our RealE channel. So Dr. Pavan Soni is an evangelist, innovation evangelist, known for his expertise in innovation, design thinking, and leadership. He is the founder of Inflexion Point Consulting and has conducted over 550 workshops with 170 organizations in 5 countries. Dr. Soni is also the author of the National Bestseller, Design Your Thinking, published by Penguin Random House in 2020, which was shortlisted for the 2021 BBLF CK Prahalad Best Business Book Award. He serves as an adjunct faculty at ISB Hyderabad and IIM Bangalore, and is a columnist for publications like LiveMint, YourStory, Inc42, Entrepreneur, and People Matters. Pavan was the only Indian to be shortlisted for the prestigious FT and McKinsey Breckenbauer Award for the Business Book of the Year 2016. He has been invited 5 times to speak at the TEDx and is featured as one of the 100 digital influencers of 2020 by YourStory. Dr. Pavan Soni holds a PhD from IIM Bangalore and completed his PGDIE degree from IIM Mumbai, previously NITI. So he's from the same alma mater that we share. He is a gold medalist from MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur. His work focuses on innovation management and he has authored several research papers and articles in this field. So welcome again, Pavan, to our RealE channel. So to begin with, first, the thought that coming to my mind is starting your own consulting firm, Inflexion Point, is a significant entrepreneurial endeavor that you do. So what inspired you to take this path? And what key lessons have you learned as an entrepreneur in this innovation field?
Yeah. So the driving factors throughout my life has been the pursuit of independence. Even now, what I cherish the most in my life is independence. It's not so much money or anything else. Now, when I was at NITI is when the whole truck of innovation really hit me. And there afterwards, when I was at Titan, where I got the chance to work on the space of innovation, it was in 2005, early 2005, which also gave me that advantage that I could pursue really deep into the space of innovation. And this one, I thought that if I'm really interested in teaching, if I'm interested in educating people, then it might make all the more sense for me to go big and invest in it. This when I decided to do a PhD program. Because I always believe that if you're good at something, you really invest in it. Passion by itself can take you only so far. You have to really, really go and invest in your passion. Only then it makes sense. So the PhD program when I was pursuing at IIM Bangalore in 2011 and 16 is when I got to understand that there is so much of the knowledge which needs to be commercialized. And I thought if sitting in the city of Bangalore, if with so much of education behind, if I don't take a plunge and start a company, then when will I do it? And all through my career, I've always maintained very good relationship and rapport with the industry. So even when I was in IIM Bangalore, was umbilical cord with industry was never snapped, and that's what helped me in my PhD program as well. Because most of my work was with industry. So to an outsider, it might look really risky, but when I looked at it, I was covered with a PhD program, which means that if anything goes wrong, I can always go to B school and start teaching. I had a very substantial work experience, which means my resume was good, and academically also I was doing pretty good. So the risk was covered. So I think it was the most natural thing for me to do, because if I have to evaluate between being full-time faculty somewhere versus starting a company, I can always be a full-time faculty at the age of 55, but I can't start a company at the age of 55. So what I want to offer to you is that entrepreneurship is risky to the observer, not to the actor. There is actor-observer bias when it comes to entrepreneurship. And risk is a matter of perception, because I've seen people are very careful when they're driving on the road, but they're very careless when they're investing in stock. Right? So you can never profile somebody as a risk averse person or risk pro person. So as long as you have a confidence in the domain, you take risk. If you don't have confidence in a domain, you shy away. So that's been the natural gravitation.
Got it. And Pavan, interestingly, your choice of entrepreneurship, the career path in innovation is also very unique, right? So what inspired this versus any other path?
So, in fact, I would like to also offer you a brief discourse on how did I get to the name Inflexion Point.
That would help.
Okay. So in 2003, when I joined Wiki, we used to have these PPTs, pre-placement talks, for the summer internship. And these presentations typically used to be long and boring. And what I would usually do is I'll go to the auditorium with a book in my hands. And it so happened that the book that I was reading that day was Andy Gru's book, Only the Paranoid Survive. And in Only the Paranoid Survive, he talks about the strategic inflection point. So in 2003 itself, I decided that whenever I start a company, the name of the company would be Inflexion Point. That was firmed up. I did not know when will I start and what topics. Now I was sitting through the lectures, and one of the distinctive lectures that I remember was of Professor Bhasin, H.P. Bhasin. So Professor Bhasin was talking about technology management. And that enamored me a lot, in the sense that how do we really look at managing technology beyond the innovation part of it to commercialization. And the real inflection point in my career happened, as I said, at Titan, where I was part of the InnoVeg. And the very initial days got to work with some of the industry stalwarts. And I had a very short 4 months winter internship, as we call that. And I used to read a lot of HBR pieces. I got to write it. So being an engineer and overall being motivated by innovation, I thought that's the right path. And I think I have a knack of creativity. By design, I'm a very, very enterprising person. I try to take chances. I try to create. And I think innovation is a lot of art than science, as it is practiced in India. So I thought it would be a very wise thing to do to bring a lot of rigor and scientific perspective. And that's the reason I chose my PhD topic also into innovation. Because, what PhD gives you, and I always recommend people to really go deep and invest into themselves, is that what a PhD gives to you is the intellectual heft and a legitimacy. When I go out and talk to people that, hey, these are very, very senior people and very large organizations. When I go and say that the way you are innovating is not best, or that it needs to be slightly more scientific, I guess people listen to. So had I gone into my entrepreneurial journey minus my PhD program, I do not think so. Would I have been an equally good and effective entrepreneur minus the PhD program? I don't think so. So on the hindsight, my stint at Titan, followed by my tenure at Wipro, then the PhD program, really fits into the ultimate thing, which is to be an independent consultant. So it has been paved, and it was certainly not accidental. If you think it was accidental, it was not. It was very much thought through.
Great, wonderful. And innovation itself can have so many different meanings, right? So we want to hear from you, what does innovation mean to you? And specifically, you said that innovation is an art. So how can one master this art or develop this skill?
So what we need to understand, first of all, is the distinction between innovation and creativity, because we use these words quite interchangeably. So creativity is the ability of an individual to generate ideas, whereas innovation is the ability of an organization to commercialize ideas. Now, the key operative in creativity is generating ideas, whereas the key operative in innovation is to commercialize. Now, what happens is that usually people are very fertile when it comes to ideation. You put a bunch of people in a room, they can have more number of ideas than you would rather chew. But when it comes to executing those ideas, we fizzle out. And that's been my constant complaint with Indians, us, is that I don't think Indians are any less creative than a Israeli or a South Korean or a German, Japanese, or American. But where we lack is discipline. We fizzle out when it comes to pursuing the idea with the grit, come what may, and being rather more regimented to pull the plug when things are not working. So there has to be grit to pursue it, but also a sense of intelligence to not pursue it. And many organizations are not treating innovation that way. To give you a parallel, the state of innovation today is the state of quality in 1960s. If in 1950s and 1960s, someone to say that I need to be a quality product company, then the only way people would think of it is that we have to get a quality conscious person. But what Toyota taught us is that the person doesn't have to be quality conscious. The process has to be of high quality. The excellence is not in the person or the leader. The excellence is in the process. So what Six Sigma brought to quality, design thinking is bringing to innovation.
Very right.
So today we think of innovation as an element of leadership style or hiring creative people and cutting them. But I don't think that is the case, because all I have to do is to go to ISRO to understand it is not ISRO is not getting the best and the brightest of our IITs to join. Right. If you really look at ISRO, the people who join ISRO are not necessarily from IIT, certainly not from IIMs. And yet they are able to produce some of the most out of the world innovations, pun intended.
Literally.
Right? So the reason they are able to do it because of the process excellence. And that is the message which I've always tried to give to the industry. Now, if I were to do this working in a large organization, I'll have to abide by the priorities of the organization. Now, when I do it independently, certainly I expose myself to massive risk. There are days and months in the end when I would not be making much of a money, but then there'll be rainfalls in certain months gigantically. But I think what I treasure the most is freedom. Like we had a conversation at 12 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't have to really think 2 times to give you a 3 p.m. slot. So this is what I really enjoy, because if I'm not creative, I cannot teach creativity. If I'm not liberal, I can't teach liberty. So that's where the whole thing is.
So, Pavan, I have a question related to this. Since you have traversed industries, you have done more than 500 sessions and workshops with 170 plus companies. So, this is sort of a rapid fire for you. So, could you name like 5 top industries which are, say, sort of favorite to you, and can share the takeaways from each of these industries? One each takeaways.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a very good question. So the first one I would like to talk to you about is ISRO. So I have done a couple of programs for ISRO, both for the satellite center here in Bangalore and the center where they make apertures, so small scale cameras. So the camera which is going on the Pragyan right now, so that is designed in one of the facilities in Bangalore. I was training these people. Now, when I stepped into ISRO's campus, which is the old airport road campus, I was being frisked by the CISF guy. And as I walked into the campus, CISF guy takes out my phone, and this is what the CISF guy tells me. And I never expected in my entire life to hear this from the CISF guy. He takes out my phone. The CISF guy tells me that, sir, it is not the phone which is smart.
Very nice.
It's not the phone which is smart. He didn't say it is the people. He just said it's not the phone which is smart. As I got the message. So I went into the campus and I had a talk on innovation culture. And I was just thinking that what can I teach ISRO, for God's sake, on innovation culture? If anything, I should be rather learning. So I was there in the big auditorium called the Vikram Sarabhai Auditorium. And we had 300 people sitting in the auditorium. And the first row of the auditorium had the directors of ISRO sitting in. And what was very unique, and I have seen it in many organizations, is that all of them had a pen and a paper. Now, the message that they're trying to send is not that I am important. They're trying to send a routine or a culture of the organization as learning is. It was a working day. In the middle of the working day, the directors of ISRO have the time to sit in a workshop and not just sit through, but also take pen and write it. And that was a very, very touching moment. Now, obviously, after the talk, I requested that can I have a tour of your facility? And what I really wanted to see was a clean room where they assembled the satellite. So, lo and behold, there we were. This gigantic clean room, 3 stories. And from a crane, there is a satellite dangling a couple of feet above the ground. It had gold and silver foils around it. And I saw a lady in the background. So her back is facing us, and there were two glass doors between us and her. I wasn't obviously allowed into that clean room. And the guy standing next to me was the head of HR. So I asked him that how long she's been there. Now, the intent of the question was that she's been working there for how long. But without looking at me, both of us were looking at that lady. Without looking at me, he just said that 18 hours. 18 hours. That lady has been standing in the clean room for 18 hours. No supervision required, not even a chair, nothing. And she is totally absorbed into the work, and that's what we say flow. So when people say that I want to be an entrepreneur, they don't realize that you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You have to find entrepreneurial opportunities in whatever you are doing. Entrepreneurship is not a title, it's a way of life. That lady working at ISRO was equally an entrepreneur as me standing outside the class. But she's taking full responsibility of her job. And she's not seeking any service, she's not seeking any accolades for running 18 hours. And that's when I got the message that this is what builds an innovation culture. That's the first example of the kind. The second example is GE. Now, so GE has this gigantic research facility called John F. Welch Research Center in Bangalore.
Right.
Now, that was the first time in my life when I got into a room which was full of PhDs. We had 35 PhDs in the room. Unlike me, they were the real deal. They were the PhDs in physics, in chemistry, in material science. And that day, for some reason, the mood was quite somber in the class. And I somehow could make out that why these guys are sad. What's happening? So I went around in the room and just spoke to the people that is everything all right? What's happening here? And these guys were from the locomotive divisions. GE have 4 divisions here. One is the locomotive division, then you have the healthcare, aerospace, and energy. So these were the locomotive division guys. And there was a time just 3 days or 4 days after Dasera. And I couldn't somehow fathom that why these guys are unhappy, they were sad. And then this was, I guess, the Dasera of 2018 or Dasera of 2019. And if you remember, in one of those 2018 or 2019 Dasera, a very tragic episode happened in Amritsar. You remember that? So there was a bunch of guys who were watching Ravan Dahan. Yeah, there was a bunch of guys who were watching Ravan Dahan in Amritsar, and they inadvertently came on the railway track, and a train moved these people down, and 80 people died. Now, somehow I couldn't understand that why people sitting in the R&D center of John F. Welch should be worried about an event happening in Amritsar. It didn't even happen in Bangalore. And then it dawned upon me when they said that, you know what, guys, the engine that was in the train was G engine. Now here we have the R&D guys who are not even responsible to sell the engine, let alone drive the engine. So instead of blaming the folks at railways or the passengers or the people or the signalman or the driver or the salesperson or the manufacturing team, you as an R&D person is taking the responsibility. And that is the highest level of customer centricity that I have seen in any organization. That these R&D guys are taking that objective statement in the workshop that day, that never again should a person die with a G engine. I was so impressed by that. I said, that is what makes an organization innovative, that you are not being exactly told that the customer is needing this and that, but you're able to anticipate.
Very, very powerful.
Anticipate what is happening. Now, this is absolutely gigantic. There's a second great epiphany moment. And the third moment, which I would want to recollect here is of Biocon. So I was doing a workshop again with Biocon, and this was by Electronic City, Hotel Lemon Tree Electronic City. So we had Kiran Majumdar Shaw coming in, inaugurating the session. We had 80 people in the workshop from the oncological OTC division. Okay. These are the guys who deal with oncology. And Kiran always said that we need to be customer centric, guys. We need to really understand what is the pain point of the customer. So how do we do customer centric? So she said, why don't we call doctors? And people said, why don't you come to our workshop? She said, no, let's call doctors. So we got doctors into the workshop. She said, no, let us also call the government agencies. So we call something the government. And we pay doctors, by the way, top of the line. to compensate for their working year. That's called startups. By the end of the day, Kiran wasn't happy. And I thought that what is she expecting? We've got doctors from the best hospitals. We have got government agents. We have got startups working in the health tech space. We have insurance companies working in. We have manufacturing, sales, marketing, HR, everybody. Why is she unhappy? And I almost declared that she is just expecting too much maybe from her folks. And that day we retired for the day. And next day morning when I came to the workshop, I was zapped to see. We had 80 people in the workshop. And every single table had a person sitting with a cap. And at first I couldn't understand why is the person wearing a cap. But as I walked in front of the person, is then I realized that the person sitting on the table was a cancer survivor. Imagine this thing that you get a cancer survivor into your workshop to get customers. Now, when you're a salesperson and you look into the eyes of the cancer survivor, you can't bluff. You can't bluff. All the numbers, all your money targets are off the cuff. When you look into this guy's eyes and the guy tells you his ordeal, you shiver. Or no PPT, none of your objective statement, all of that. So the extent to which she got to get the customer centricity literally into the classroom is exceptional. Most companies do worse. They make PPT, they have a caricature of who the customer is. But to get somebody to open up in front of people. So dialogue goes like this, that the person says, you know what, when I was diagnosed with cancer, my doctor told me that it's pretty late. You came late, and I'm afraid you can't live more than 2 years. But we can try. But the day he told me that I can't live for 2 years, I resigned to the fate that I can't live. And of course, you as a biocon can certainly increase my 2 years to 3 years, and that's your job. But here is a deal, biocon. I don't, and this is so profound. It's so profound. And then they said that biocon, please don't try to add years to my life. Don't make 2 years into 3 years into 4 years. Don't try to add years to my life. If at all, add life to my years.
Very nice.
Make my death less painful. Don't give me more life. Now, no market research, no customer insighting until you can give you that insight. So what I want to offer to you is that if we say India is not innovating, I don't think that is true. Those people who say India is not innovating, they just don't know India. I can say that much. But being passionate about India, being passionate about, I love this country. And I'm very vocal about what great things our country is doing. And that's my interest in it. Because even in my book, Design Your Thinking, I cover many Indian case studies because somehow we have not been speaking about Indian innovations. We have not been speaking about the great work Indigo is doing, Royal Enfield is doing, Lemon Tree is doing. Titan, I speak a lot about Titan's Integrity Campus. It's one of the best campuses I've seen across the country. Or the ordeal of customer centricity at the Hotel Taj in the 2008 episode. Right. If we don't bring those stories, then the next generation of people are only reading Apple, Google, IDEO, and Walmart. Right. And none of them apply to our context. What applies to our context is what we need to learn. So that has been my passion. My passion is to uncover Indian narratives, narrate those in as much possible way, and celebrate whatever innovation we are doing, and also augment the innovation capacities of people. And I just feel lucky, honestly speaking.
So Pavan,
lucky, yeah.
Sorry. So I am getting goosebumps after hearing those three very, very apt and powerful examples. And you have actually touched upon the next thing that I wanted to ask you is at the moment, while you traverse a lot of subjects and you cover a lot of industries and talk about innovations. So as of today, if I speak to Dr. Soni, I'm speaking to you, what is your favorite subject which you are deeply passionate about? And could you share your thoughts and insights on that subject?
So, Anupam, the way I craft my intellectual pursuit is relatively subject agnostic. So today, as of today, or as of this week, I'm reading 5 books. So the way I read books is I read very voraciously, by the way. but I am reading 5 books, and I'll give you the title of these 5 books. And I always read 5 books simultaneously. I never
That's
finish a book
interesting.
and then and I try to increase the variance as much as possible when I'm reading this. The first book is is an autobiography of Bear Grylls, Man vs. Wild. So that's the first book which I'm reading. The second book is the 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. The second book which I'm reading. The third book which I'm reading is the biography of Albert Einstein. The fourth book which I'm reading is on strategy. And the last book which I'm reading is The Anatomy of Brain. And this is written by neurosurgeon. Now, in the same week, I'll be reading about Einstein, about Bear Grylls, about the anatomy of brain, about strategy, and about, say, the history and the future of technology. And because as an independent entrepreneur, and because I'm not working in an organization, the most important bearing that we need to understand from an entrepreneurial perspective is that every entrepreneur has to be self-disciplined. The difference between an employee and entrepreneur is that employees would mostly want to be disciplined, and entrepreneurs have to be self-disciplined. If people don't ask me, if I don't read books, then I'm as good as my last workshop. So by reading books continuously and by reading a very, very high variety of literature, I try to ensure that I am bringing that perspective to the table that the person who's seasoned in a given craft will never be able to. So I never try to limit myself to a certain topic, and one is that it allows you to have a very high curiosity. It gives you very rich perspective in life and diversity of examples, and also kind of disciplines you, and it humbles you. It humbles you so much that look at a guy like Bear Grylls, a guy who has, and he was literally, I'm telling you, which is very surprising when I was reading him. When he started Man vs. Wild, he had no money. All the money that he had in his entire life, he invested in a friend's startup, and the startup went bankrupt, and he had no money for his family. No money. He was in SAS, which is the secret services of special forces of UK. He was a military man, and he retired from military. He had no educational background. He had no business, no job, nothing. And he had no script of what is Man vs. Wild. And with this gigantic leap of faith to start something about Man vs. Wild, and which is very surprising is that there is no director of Man vs. Wild. None of the episodes of Man vs. Wild had directors. They only have producers. There's no director. It's unscripted. Now, this is an insight which is hugely valuable. Hugely valuable. Or Albert Einstein, for example, when he was at the age of 26, when he wrote his 5 famous papers in 1905, he was working as a patent clerk in a patent office in Bern.
Right.
So he had a 9 to 5 job, or 9 to 6 job, and after that 9 to 6 job, he'll write papers. He had 2 children. He was fighting a divorce with his first wife. He was having a 9-hour job, and he wrote 5 papers in a year. And 3 of them changed the course of physics, and 1 of them got him a Nobel Prize. And we talk about that I don't have time. That is not cutting ice. So that is the way I would always want to. So no particular subject. I keep it very broad, very broad.
Very, very inspiring. So, Pavan, you have actually inspired us to pick a book right now and go deep into it. So,
Yes.
moving on, Pavan, since you consult so many organizations, right? You have spoken to almost 170 plus organizations now. We wanted to understand what are some of the challenges these organizations face when they try to bring in the process of innovation, right? What are the common barriers that you have seen they encounter?
So one of the things that organizations uh, face a big challenge in is, in my opinion, their discipline. What has happened is that somehow we are very, very disciplined about quality, but we think innovation is a fluke. It happens. We say that if you put a bunch of people and give them enough coffee and enough donuts and enough time, they'll be somehow able to come up with a wacky idea. So we think of innovation comes out of lack of discipline and not discipline. And in our mind, innovation and discipline cannot coexist. We think discipline strangles innovation, which I think is a completely wrong line of thought. So first thing that people miss out in a big way is that they are not disciplined about innovation. They are more serendipitous about innovation. So we can give innovation the respect that it deserves. That's the first thing. And as a result, we need to treat it with the same rigor as we treat quality, as we treat productivity. We are very conscious about productivity. We are not so conscious about creativity, whereas they are those opposite sides of the same coin. The first thing. The second thing is that we need to have an experimentative mindset. One of the fundamental ethos of Indian organizations has been that you should be right first time. Right first time has been given a lot of premium in our society. But imagine this thing, that if you're trying to experiment, then how can you be right first time? You will be wrong first time, you will be wrong second time, you will be wrong third time, and maybe you will be right fourth time. And if you're doing an experiment and you are being right first time, then it means either of the two things. Either you have lowballed yourself or you have manipulated the outcome to fit into what is right. So I think an experimentative mindset, I'll not use the word risk propensity because we take risk, but we don't experiment so much. Right? That is very different. Taking risk versus experimentation is this. I'll give you a simple example of how do you take risk versus experiment. I am an entrepreneur and I want to open 10 stores and I have only one store and I've taken loan, then I'm exposing myself to risk. But there is an experiment in that. Because I'm not trying anything new. I'm just replicating the same store 10 times over. So I've taken risk without being experimentative. So we should not confuse that every experiment is risk taking and vice versa. That's the second point, which is we need to be risk taking. And the third thing, which I believe is very, very critical, is that we need to create a culture of psychological safety. In many organizations where I go, unfortunately, and even Titan for that matter, if I go from Hosur to Bangalore, in Bangalore, people call each other by first name basis. But when I go to a Hosur factory, the sir culture is still very prevalent.
Yes.
Now, when I'm calling somebody by sir, then one thing is for sure that the person who is my sir is not open to being challenged.
Right.
Is not open to being challenged. And which also means that if I'm calling somebody sir, then it also means that I cannot really do anything so crazy that will upset him. And unless and until you overcome this culture and come up with a much more egalitarian system where ideas are experimented with, where it is encouraged, then I think innovation will struggle. And as a result, what you see is that, well, the CEO of, CEO of Microsoft, CEO of Google, CEO of World Bank, CEO of Adobe, CEO of Novartis, all are Indians. But we don't have a single Indian company featuring in the world's most innovative companies. So we have Indian leaders running the world's most innovative companies, but not even a single Indian company featuring the world's most innovative companies. And the reason I believe is not the person, it's the routines and the discipline. When an average person leaves India and goes to a Western organization, what he or she gets into is a routine of innovation. And the routine of innovation is something that we have not managed to crack it. Some companies have. So today, when ISRO does a wonderful job, the credit so much doesn't go to the director of the mission, right? Because the mission director, same mission director, has been responsible for a bunch of failures also. But I've never seen a single organization where an experiment is live telecasted. ISRO does it. They are live telecasting an experiment. Anything can go wrong, by the way. In full public view, anything can go wrong. But we are very hush-hush about experimentation. So I think we've taken leaf from ISRO and from such organizations that we need to be much more liberal when it comes to being explorative and experimentative. And that's been my central message as an innovation evangelist through my talks, through my videos, through whatever I'm able to do. And if I can move the needle in that direction, I'll feel myself useful.
Amazing message. So, tell us a little bit about your personal side. Have you faced any challenge towards experimentation or towards risk taking, or any challenge in general, and how did you overcome it?
So, first of all, I've been reasonably lucky to have parents who have supported me unconditionally and a wife who has been very kind to me. Because think about that, most people would rather get educated to get a job. But here I was doing a very good job at ISRO. And then I resigned one day and get back into education. And not an education of an MBA type, but an education of PhD type, which was not heard of by PhD.
It's an unconventional path.
Exactly, very unconventional. But my parents supported me unconditionally. My wife has been very kind to me, both in terms of moral support and financial background. And in the middle of the PhD alone, where all my batchmates would rather go and pursue a career in academics at one of the IIMs or go back to the industry at a higher pay grade. And I was again taking a plunge into the unknown territory of business. And even now, when I'm running my company, I don't intend or I don't have a team. And the reason I don't have a team and I don't intend to have a team is because my business doesn't work in a fashion where I get a bunch of people. What I really enjoy doing is I just like doing 2 or 3 workshops a week. Right. So if I look at my calendar, I work for 5 days a month. And that takes care of more than enough of my finances. And rest of the time I'm reading, writing, or doing some intellectual stuff. But if I get a team suddenly, I'll have to work for the team. Right? And I have to keep them busy. So I would rather write a book, let people read my book and run their own companies instead of me retaining them and doing all of that. And that is something that I just do. And that's again as a risk. So what I'm suggesting is that, as I said at the beginning, risk is a matter of perception. What may sound risky to Rinku and Anupam is very much a routine to me and vice versa. Right? So I think what I strongly believe, guys, is the fact that financial independence keeps you intellectually honest. Financial independence gives you intellectual honesty. My pursuit is not so much about money because I don't even know what to do with so much of it, honestly speaking. If I ever get to, I just don't know how to manage it. But what I would like to not compromise at any point in time is my intellectual honesty. I want to be intellectually honest. And I want to speak without hurting many sentiments, what I genuinely feel like speaking. Right? And if it hurts a few people, I'm not too much apologetic about it. And that's the reason why we need to have friends. And I strongly believe that if money is not keeping you intellectually honest, then money is doing. If with more money you feel more obliged to behave in a certain way which you're not comfortable with, it means you have done it wrong. Somewhere you have missed it. So I've had a lot of challenges, but I think each of those challenges have really given me tremendous learning. For example, in the middle of my PhD program, my guide left me, and there was a gigantic derailment that happened. When I was writing my book, COVID started, and I didn't have anybody sort of helping me with promoting the book, etc. But again, it was a blessing in disguise, and henceforth and so on. And these things keep happening, but I would really think hard if you ask me what have been the challenges because I never construed them as challenges. There have been sort of opportunities and blessings so that I can move to the next orbit and develop my skills. And as I said before, I feel truly privileged to be able to do what I'm doing. I just feel lucky.
Very, very good, I think, perspective to look at the situations as an opportunities. So, Pawan, since you are also connected with education, just connected with, you have done PhD and education institutes. Also, you go and teach. So, you share some insights on the gaps that you see in the education system and what you believe that how can be done to, or what can be done to overcome those shortcomings.
It's a good question. See, I think we have, it's quite fashionable, I would say, to blame the education system. Even at a schooling level. When I talk to parents often say that, these teachers are not doing a good job in improving my child's creativity. But here is a question. I'm asking this question to everybody in the audience right now. Where does your child spend a lot of time? At home or at school? At home. At home, certainly, not at school. School, she's there for about 6 or 7 hours, but she's mostly at the home. Now, here is a teacher who was even deprived of a proper salary in the midst of COVID. I remember parents claiming that if teachers are not coming to school and if the child isn't going to school, why pay teachers? They're teaching online. While they did not miss a single beat in terms of their appraisal, their salaries, but they were cutting down the salaries of teachers. In a country like Japan, where the highest paid employee is a teacher, in our country, teachers are not paid very well.
Right.
Now we have a class of 32 students where the teacher is supposed to stand there, discipline 32 students, where you struggle with one student at your home, and you are expecting her to teach your child creativity. Rather than expecting your teacher to teach her creativity, you should be the one who's teaching creativity to child. So creativity, discipline, character, etiquettes, they can't be outsourced. When parents are keeping their children at a crèche because they are busy churning the economic engine, cranking the economic engine, what they're completely mistaking is that don't get so busy working for the world that you forgot the person whom you got into the world. You cannot outsource like that. So when parents blame that schools are not being creative, the big question is that are we giving enough resources for the school to be creative in the first place? And are we dodging the bullet? Are we dodging our own responsibilities as parents to be teaching our child creative? If we are giving our child a phone when she is not eating breakfast, why are we blaming the teachers? So I think the first responsibility is at the household level. And I've seen so many people, right from Thomas Alva Edison to the more recent Elon Musk, who have been homeschooled. There have been people who have been homeschooled and they have invented the world basically as we're talking about. So I think there's a lot of correction that needs to be done at the home level as against the school level. That's at the primary and the secondary level. At a tertiary level, and at a higher education excuse me. The distinction which I see over here is in the US system, we have a university where there is an engineering college, there is a medical college, and there is an arts college. And as a result, there is a lot of cross pollination. So if I'm at the Stanford University, I can even go to the Stanford Medical School, I can go to the Stanford Engineering School, I can go to a business school, and I can go to the Stanford Art School, and I can take credits from across. So when I'm a university system, I'm not labeled as an artist or a scientist or an engineer or a technologist or a medical student. I can learn in a holistic fashion. Whereas what we have in our country is that there is an IIM, there is an IIT, and there is an NIFT, and there is an NIT, and there is an AIMS. And none of them talk to each other. So very early in my life, I have to choose which of the domains I need to go to.
Right.
And as a result, what happens is that at a later point in time, if you explore that I'm not cut out for this, you have no choice.
You have no choice.
Stick on. Whereas in the Western world, the university system allows the free flow of thoughts, the cross pollination or the Medici effect, and I can take credits across discipline, and that is something that must come back at the higher education. But again, I am a great fan of internalizing responsibility. I would never ever blame our government. I think a lot more can be done by individuals. Because in the Western world also there are some systemic flaws. And most of the inventions that we are enjoying today have not come courtesy university system. They have come courtesy individual enterprise. The individuals who have gone there. So if your university does not allow you all of that, I think you have open market to go out and read and pursue things on your own. Because in the next 20 years, I would rather not make universities own up somebody's education, let the individual own up somebody's education. University would be a meeting point. It will be a boiling pot at best where people from various domains come together. So I squarely believe that the responsibility is to oneself, not so much the system.
Amazing thoughts. So moving on, Pavan, you spoke a little bit about organizations who are pioneering customer-centric innovation, right? You gave examples of ISRO, GE, Biocon. Is there any other example that you would like to mention, which is front-ending innovation today, or is basically experiencing rapid innovation and are leading the pack?
I think Mahindra comes to mind here. And Mahindra has been an organization which has truly reinvented itself. If you go to the XUV 500 project, the XUV 500 project was an absolutely mind-blowing proportion because for the very first time in India, we had an automobile company that took a completely grounds-up approach to developing an SUV. And in my book, I talk about the development of XUV 500. They set up a Mahindra Research Valley in Chennai. They set up a factory in Chakan. They set up an entire development studio. The head of design of Mahindra XUV was a lady. They designed the XUV for a future generation. The entire design was based on cheetah. Cheetah was the sort of analogy that they took. They went to Kenya, saw cheetah in the wilderness. They did the test drive of this car in 11 countries. 11 countries, more than a couple of lakhs of kilometers they drove the car before the car came. No doubt it's a gigantic success. And Mahindra has really, and then Thar, then latest Thar, the XUV 700, and the whole host of electric cars that they have come on. So the pace at which Mahindra has been able to demonstrate innovation in the automotive space is quite exceptional, in my opinion. So that's one company that I would rate very, very high. And of course, we have in the services sector, I strongly believe Indigo is a great example. See, it is not easy to be profitable from the day one in a company, an industry which is known for its wafer thin margins. Indigo has been the only quarter in which Indigo did not make money as a company was during the COVID pandemic because the industry was hit badly.
Right.
But barring that, you can't name a single company in a developed economy in the airlines industry which is more than 50% market share. And here is a company which is almost 63% market share. And you have to be an Indigo customer to understand how they are able to match operational efficiency with customer centricity. Indigo is a great example.
Yeah, I think we all have been the customers of Indigo. So, Pavan, I think we have also spoken about lot about now a positive aspect of a positive impact that innovation creates. But this is a slight googly question. So, is there a dark side of innovation that individuals and organizations be aware and cautious about? So, could you share your insights on any potential or drawback or challenges associated with the pursuit of innovation?
Great question. Very good question. There's a dark side of creativity, and there is a very good literature that creative people tend to be immoral. Immoral. And this is interesting because they are so creative that they can bend the definition of what is right or wrong. So if you look at a kid, and a kid is very creative, like Dennis the Menace, the kid is very creative. The kid can actually bend the definition of what is right and wrong and fool the people. So their threshold, what is right, wrong, moral, immoral, is very low. And as a result, if you look at, and I have been reading a bit of Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Elon Musk, and Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Richard Feynman, right? And many of these people, if you look at their life, there have been a very big dark side of their lives, which have been skirting immorality. For example, Albert Einstein was a very, very big womanizer. Very big womanizer. The reason he had a divorce is because he had a lot of flirtatious relationships, including with his own cousin sister. And many such people, I don't want to go in that trajectory, but many such people, because they somehow think that one dimension of their life, which is uber creative, uber entrepreneurial, can more than make for the dark side of their life till it is revealed. And that is where there is a bit of self-justification that goes, that's okay. I've achieved so much, so even if I do something something shady on the sidelines, I don't think that should be bad because I've overcompensated with the great stuff. So that is one thing that one needs to be very careful about. But from organizational, if you look at the speeches of Elon Musk and even Jeff Bezos, etc., they're pretty verbal about it. They have no qualms about having several affairs and several marriages and firing people up and being outright immoral and being very, very self-centered and things like that. And they're okay with that because they justify it all in the pursuit of excellence or the pursuit of American dream. So that is one dimension, which is on the creativity aspect. The second, from an organizational perspective, innovation has to be matched with disciplined execution. Now, many companies in the pursuit of customer centricity forget about the disciplined logic of business. And I'll give you two examples of the companies that really wanted to be innovative, cutting edge, and customer centric, and eventually they went bankrupt. The first company that comes to mind is Kingfisher Airlines. If you look at Kingfisher Airlines, they were the first company in the country that gave us an world-class experience in flight, whether it was in-flight entertainment or the kind of food that they were serving, or the air hostesses that they had. And where did the company go? They went into the ground. So happy customer does not mean a good business. And that is a caution that I would like to offer to you, that if you have a very high pace of innovation, if you do not have the discipline and the rigor of execution excellence and of process standardization, too much of innovation can burn you out very quickly. And we have a lot of other examples in the Western world also, like Uber. The reason Uber lost out in Australia, they are out. In Singapore, they are out. In India, they are dying a slow death. But the reason they have been is not that they didn't innovate because they were the pioneers after all, but they did not focus so much on the dirty things or the hard things, which is execution excellence. I always believe that excellence comes by doing the boring stuff well. And people don't want to do the boring stuff well. If I'm a kitchen, if I'm a chef, I can have a great dish being prepared. But in the end of the day, if I don't keep my kitchen clean, my guests aren't coming back. And clean the kitchen after preparing that gourmet dish is a boring work, it's a dirty work. And we're not willing to do that. And there is a day when all these things will blow out of hand. So I think innovation has to be doubled up with discipline. So think of a yin and yang. When you innovate and pursue creatively the next and the latest, you also need to be disciplined about taking it all the way through. Because I can come up with a book idea, but unless I sit down and write it word by word and edit it, when the last book I wrote, I edited this book 65 times. 65 times I edited my book. The amount of time it took me to write the book and the amount of time that it took me to edit the book was same. 9 months to write, 9 months to edit. It was a painful process, but that's the process that you have to go. And people are not wanting because the young generation perhaps want to go from one exciting stuff to the next exciting stuff. And nobody wants to keep the space clean. And no marks for that. So that's a flip side.
So boring is important. Doing boring in a disciplined manner is important.
Very, very.
So, Pavan, any message you want to share for young entrepreneurs who are either already starting a business or people who are thinking of becoming entrepreneurs, because you are a proponent of entrepreneurship yourself, right?
So again, like everything which I said, I would like to remain against the grain in this context also. It's not that I want to be against the grain, but somehow I have a very healthy disrespect for the establishment. I don't respect establishments much. And you can discount the word healthy here in my statement. So the first recommendation that I have is that not everyone can become an entrepreneur. If people say that anybody can become an entrepreneur, I think they're lying. Not everyone can become. Now, how do you know if you are the one? You know if you are the one by allowing yourself to work somewhere. I always maintain that people should be working for at least 3 to 5 years in a large organization before they understand if entrepreneurship is something that they're ready for yet or. And why large organizations? And why not small organizations? You should start your career with a large organization because in large organizations, you learn by the virtue of systems and processes. In a small organization, if you become successful, you do not even know whether it happened because of your hard work or because of sheer luck. You have no way of deciding your hard work versus sheer luck. And in a large organization, by the fact that you are in that organization, by sheer observing, you understand the power of processes. And a person who has cut his teeth or her teeth in a large organization will be a great asset to a startup and not the other way around. Okay? And there is no need for you to kick the bucket and be an entrepreneur on your own. Why not be an entrepreneur within the large organization?
Right.
I strongly believe that the people who start a new business within a large organization are equally entrepreneurs. The person who started the paperboard business in ITC, or the person who started the Ashirwad business in ITC, or the Fiamma Devels, they are entrepreneurs. Very well, and ITC is the investor. So one has to look at it this way. So it's not necessary that entrepreneurship means that you are running your own company. Not at all. Entrepreneurship is a way of life and not a role. That's very important in one needs to understand. Let's not fall for that. So not everybody has to be or can be. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you need to be clear about what is your driving force behind entrepreneurship. I believe that there are 4 reasons why people do something what they do. The first is greed. People get greedy in life. मुझे और चाहिए. If I do this, I'll get this. If I do this, I'll get more of this. And that's one reason that entrepreneurs get propelled. That is expanded, it get more funds so that our valuation gets raised and then so forth. Greed is a very big driver, but the problem is greed. is that you never know what is happening. You never know when is it that you can sort of call it a day. That's greed first. Second is fear. They're afraid that if I don't do it, something wrong is going to happen. I might bundle up. I might become insignificant. I might lose it all. Tomorrow, everything can get over. I lose my reputation. That's fear. Fear keeps people motivated, but the problem with fear is that fear burns you down very quickly.
Right.
You get burned up with fear very quickly. So by the time you are 40, you look like you are 60. And what's the point in being somebody big if you feel a slight pain in the left side of your chest? What's the point of that? Great. You don't want to survive the rest of your life on pills. You need to have. The second is fear. The third is duty. Many entrepreneurs run their company from a sense of duty. No, I have 20 people, I have their families, so I need to look after their families. I need to ensure that, I have a business, I pay my taxes properly, I scale the organization, I take care of my customers. But the sense of duty is that duty defines you so much that you think by doing a duty, you've done your job. So you get limited by your duty and you never go beyond the call of duty. So you see, we have fear, we have greed, and we have duty. But the most pious, the most important aspect is love. It's not fear, it's not duty, it is not greed, it is love. Do you do something only and only because you love it? And if you love it, it stands out. If you love it, it stands out because then you are completely in love. You're completely natural. If I go to a cobbler, and I've seen that. If I go to, I'm standing right, there's a street right in front of me, and there's a cobbler at the end of the street. If I go to the cobbler, the way in which he polishes my shoe, the way in which he stitches my shoe, I know that he is in love with his craft. Love on his job. He's so careful. He's so sort of. I may not be able to make out the difference between a well done stitching and not so well done stitching because I'm not an expert. But he loves it. And if you love what you're trying to do, then you always have the reins in your hand. You're not letting the reins go to somebody who's an investor, who's an employee, who's your partner, who's your spouse, or the government, or the customer. So I think what happens is many people start their company with love. Slowly it becomes greed, or chahiye, or cutting. Then one day there is a fear. Oh my God, what if everything I lose? And then there is duty. I must do it, otherwise I can't close it. But if you have lost the love of doing it at the first place, don't do it. Because one thing is for sure that you can't be excellent in it. You can manage the show, you can keep your head above the water, but you can't be excellent. Excellence comes only when you are totally in love with what you're trying. Because people can make out. That's my view.